It is the middle of the week, and you are staring into your refrigerator, and you are doing the arithmetic in your head. You bought groceries 3 days ago. You have already spent, what, $70? $80? And half of it is gone, or wilting, and you still do not know what you are going to eat tonight. So you close the door, and you think about ordering something, and there goes another $15. It feels like eating well simply costs a great deal of money now, and there is nothing to be done about it. Let me say it plainly. I am 81 years old. I eat well every single day. Warm meals, good food that has helped keep the people of my island among the longest lived on this earth. And I feed myself for a whole week on about $12, not by starving, not by eating the same sad thing over and over, by eating the old way. Come with me into my kitchen, and I will show you my true week, everything I actually eat, and what it actually costs. This is not a trick, and I am not going to pretend I live on air. I am going to walk you through 7 real days of honest food, plainly, dollar by dollar, so you can see with your own eyes that eating well and eating cheaply were never enemies. They only became enemies when we forgot how. But first, let me show you what the forgetting costs. The ordinary person now spends, what is it, $150 a week to feed themselves and throws away a third of it and still ends the week ordering food to the door. Call it $500, $600 a month for 1 or 2 people, much of it on packages, on convenience, on meals eaten once and forgotten, on food that spoiled before it was touched. That is $6,000, $7,000 a year to eat, and often to eat poorly. Against my $12 a week, a bit over $600 a year, that is the quiet theft laid bare. Not because your food must cost that, because you were taught to buy it that way. My name is Kenji Takara. I am 81 years old, and I live in Okinawa, in the south of Japan. My wife Yuki has fed us this way for the whole of our long life together, as her mother fed her family before her, and her mother's mother before that, through years far leaner than these. What I am about to show you is not a hardship diet. It is simply how people here have always eaten. A little rice, a little soy, a little fish, a great many vegetables, and nothing at all wasted. It is the everyday food of one of the healthiest, longest living places in the world. And it is astonishingly cheap, because it was born in times when it had to be. We have a word here for the sorrow of waste, matenai. And a $12 week is matenai made into meals. Every scrap used, every leftover carried forward. Nothing bought that will not be eaten. Nothing eaten that does not do you good. That is the whole foundation of what you are about to see. There is no money, plainly, in teaching you that you can eat well for $12 a week. There is a great deal of money in the packaged meal, the delivery, the crowded cart, the third that spoils and must be bought again. So the cheap old way sits quiet in kitchens like mine, while most people pay 6 times over for the privilege of eating worse. Let me simply show you the week, and you will see. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what I eat across 7 days, what each thing costs, why this way of eating is genuinely nourishing and not merely cheap, the honest limits of it, and how to begin building the same kind of week in your own kitchen. Let me start with the foundation, because everything rests on it. So here is the heart of it, plainly. The whole week stands on a small foundation of cheap staples that never spoil, bought rarely and stretched across many meals. And then, Around that foundation, a little of the fresh and the cheap, and nothing wasted. Let me count the foundation first, because this is where the low number truly comes from. A large sack of rice, 20 pounds, costs perhaps $18 where I am, and it holds dozens upon dozens of servings. My share of it in any one week is $1 or less. A tub of miso, $4 or $5, makes 50 bowls of soup. My week's share is pennies. Soy sauce, salt, a bag of dried seaweed, some dried beans, all of them bought rarely, all of them lasting months, all of them costing only pennies per meal when you divide them across the many meals they make. That foundation, plainly, is most of my eating, and it costs almost nothing per day. The $12 is spent mostly on the fresh things laid on top. On the first day, I begin as I begin most days, with a bowl of miso soup and a bowl of rice. The rice, a few cents. The miso soup, a spoon of miso, a little tofu, a pinch of seaweed, perhaps 20 cents. For the day's other meals, rice again, and a plate of vegetables. In this season, cabbage is cheap. A whole head for $1 or $2, and half a cabbage, simply cooked with a little soy, feeds me across 2 meals with rice. A whole day of eating, warm and full, well under $2. On the second day, miso soup and rice again in the morning. I never tire of it, and it costs almost nothing. Midday, I cook a small amount of dried beans I set to soak the night before. A cup of dried beans costs perhaps 50 cents and makes several servings, rich in protein, filling, and good. Beans and rice, the humblest and most complete meal in nearly every poor kitchen on earth. In the evening, the rest of yesterday's cabbage, refreshed, with an egg stirred through the rice. The whole day, again, well under $2. On the third day, I buy a little fish. Here is where $1 or $2 goes, and here is the Okinawan secret of it. I do not buy an expensive fillet. I buy a whole small fish, or a cheap cut, for $2 or $3, and I use every part of it. The flesh is grilled simply with salt and eaten with rice and greens. The head and the bones go into a pot to become a broth, and that broth becomes the base of the next day's soup. One cheap fish, plainly, stretches across 2 or 3 days of meals because nothing of it is thrown away. On the fourth day, that fish broth becomes a soup, with a few vegetables and some noodles or rice dropped in. A warm, savory, nourishing bowl built from what most people would have thrown in the bin. Rice and miso soup around it, as always. And here you see the engine of the whole week turning. Yesterday's scraps have quietly become today's meal, at no new cost at all. On the fifth day, vegetables again. Whatever was cheapest and freshest, in season. Greens or root vegetables cost very little. Cooked simply and eaten with rice and an egg, or with a little of the beans still left from earlier in the week. I eat a great many vegetables, plainly because they are cheap and filling, and they are much of why the people here live so long and so well. On the sixth day, I use whatever remains, the last of the vegetables, the last of the beans, the last scrap of fish, gathered into one pot of fried rice or one pot of soup, where nothing needs to match and everything is welcome. This is the day that wastes nothing. The day the week empties itself cleanly into one good final pot, so that not a scrap is left to spoil. And on the seventh day, I rest, and I eat simply again. Rice, miso soup, an egg, a little pickled vegetable I keep always in the refrigerator, made from the trimmings of the week's vegetables in a little salt. A quiet, warm, complete day of eating, for almost nothing. Add it honestly, plainly, and the fresh things of the week, the cabbage, the beans, the cheap fish, the eggs, the seasonal vegetables, come to perhaps $8 or $9. The foundation drawn from the pantry, the rice, the miso, the soy, the seaweed, comes to $2 or $3 for the week's share. $12, near enough, for 7 full days of warm, varied, genuinely nourishing food. Now, why is this genuinely good eating and not merely cheap survival? Let me be plain and honest with you, because it matters. This is not a diet of empty starch. Look at what fills the week. Rice for energy, yes, but beans and fish and egg and tofu for real protein, a great abundance of vegetables for all their goodness, miso and a little pickled vegetable, both fermented, both gentle on the belly. It is naturally low in the heavy processed foods that harm us, and rich in the simple whole foods that sustain us. This is close to the traditional way of eating here in Okinawa, one of the places where people have most reliably lived long, healthy lives. Now I will be honest and not overclaim. I cannot promise you this food will make you live to 100, and anyone who promises you that is selling you something. But I can tell you plainly that it is real, whole, balanced, nourishing food, and that it costs a fraction of what the packaged life costs. Cheap and good, together, as they always were meant to be. Now, the honest scope, for I will always tell you the truth. A $12 week works where I live, with the prices of my island. Where you live, fish or vegetables may cost more, and your honest number might be $15 or $20 or $25. Still a small fraction of what most people spend, and the principle holds exactly. And hear me plainly on health. This is how a well person may eat simply and cheaply, but it is not medical advice. If you have a condition, your kidneys, your heart, your blood sugar, some of these foods, and especially the salt in miso and soy and pickles, must be watched, and your doctor's word comes before mine, always. Eating cheaply must never mean eating in a way that harms you. And keep the ordinary safety I have always spoken of. Cool your rice quickly and keep it cold. Treat fish and eggs with care, and throw away without hesitation anything that has truly spoiled. Thrift never asks you to risk your health. Now Matenai, the heart that ties the whole week together, for you have seen it turning through every single day. The cabbage that fed 2 days, the beans stretched across the week, the one cheap fish used down to its bones, its head becoming the broth that became the soup, the vegetable trimmings pickled into tomorrow's side dish, the final pot that swept up every last scrap, so nothing spoiled. This is the whole secret of the $12. Plainly, it is not that I buy strange, cheap food. It is that I waste none of ordinary food. Most people's weekly bill is not high because good food is dear. It is high because 1/3 of it dies in the drawer. Take away the waste. Build on a cheap, unspoiling foundation. Use every part of everything, and the number falls and falls until a good week costs what a single restaurant meal costs. That is Matenai, counted out across 7 honest days. Now the honest math, plainly, set side by side. My week, about $12 and eating well every day. The ordinary week, $100 and more, with 1/3 thrown away and delivery on top. Across a year, that is the difference between spending perhaps $600 or $700 to feed yourself and spending $6,000 or $7,000, several $1,000s a year. Plainly, the price of a fine holiday or a long cushion against hard times, sitting there in the gap between eating the old careful way and eating the modern wasteful one. Not earned by working more, simply kept by wasting less. So here is what I ask you to do this week, and it is only one small step toward the whole. Pick just 2 days. For those 2 days, build your eating on a cheap, unspoiling foundation. A pot of rice, a bowl of miso or bean soup, and lay only a little fresh and cheap on top. A cabbage, some eggs, a handful of vegetables, and waste none of it, carrying each day's leftovers into the next. Add up what those 2 days truly cost you. I think the smallness of the number will surprise you and show you, better than all my words, that eating well was never the expensive thing. Wasting food was. And tell me something in the comments, for I would truly like to know. When you were young or in a lean time, what did your family eat to get by? A cheap, humble week of food, a dish that stretched almost nothing into enough for everyone. What was on the table? Those old ways of eating well on little are exactly the kind of wisdom that vanishes when no one writes it down. Share yours. I read every single one. Next time, since today you saw my whole cheap week, I will take 1 day of it and show you in full how Yuki turns a single $2 fish into 3 days of meals, flesh and broth and all, with nothing thrown away. The same care, the same waste-nothing heart. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Until then, remember the whole of it in one breath. Build on a cheap foundation that never spoils. Lay a little fresh food on top. Use every last part of everything. And a whole week of good, warm, nourishing eating costs about what you once paid for a single meal.